Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so now we'll be doing the amendments with respect to indirect tax. And indirect tax means you guys have two things in your syllabus, that is GST and customs. But there is no amendments in customs, so you need not worry. So with respect to GST, whatever is there, we will be doing or we will be seeing now. Chalo, we'll start. So first thing, indirect tax amendments for December 2020 exams, chapter 2, that is basic of goods and service tax. Guys, I'm repeatedly telling that whatever chapter number and name I have given, that is as per my study material, that is the study material which is made by me. Okay, because the chapter name and chapter number might be different as per your institute study materials, but whatever I have quoted here is as per my material, so that it will be easy for you to refer and study both put together. Clear? So when you are studying, please do refer and study together when you are revising next time. Today you just go through these handouts, whatever I am given, I will just share it in the group. Once you are done with this, next time when you are studying tax, keep both the things, that is study material as well as this together. Wherever, assume there is second chapter you are studying in income tax and there is an amendment with respect to second chapter, study both together. So that, okay, you are done with that second chapter completely. Agree? You have to study like that when you are studying for the next time or revising next time. Chalo guys. Yeah, basics of goods and service tax, that is chapter 2, composition scheme. So there is some composition scheme given in section 10. Actually there is no amendment with respect to this. Small change is there. Sir, change is also amendment? No, actually amendment in the, yeah, one second. There are people who are attending now, joining now. So, sir, what is this section 10 changes? First, what is section 10? I will just give an introduction. See, section 10 is the composition scheme which tells if there are some small traders or dealers for whom the actual tax burden might be more. For example, GST normal tax rates, slab rates are 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. Agree? So if you are supplying anything which is liable for GST, you are supposed to pay GST at whatever rate is applicable. But for some small people, composition scheme has been given. So composition scheme will tell if your aggregate turnover is less than 1.5 crores or 75 lakhs in some special category states. Agree? In that case, you can opt for composition scheme. If you opt for composition scheme, you will be paying tax at very lower rate, like 0.5% or 2.5%, like that. Agree? So now, sir, can everyone opt for composition scheme? No. First of all, the limit is aggregate turnover should be less than 1.5 crores. Agree? Or for some special category states, it is 75 lakhs. First condition. So once you cross this, other restrictions are there for you. For example, you cannot collect the tax from your, if you are opting for composition scheme, you cannot collect tax from your customers. Then you cannot take credit on whatever tax you have paid on inward supply, that is on your purchases. You cannot take a credit. Next, you cannot issue tax invoice. All these restrictions are there if you are opting for composition scheme. Agree? If you are going for a regular scheme, that is as per section 10 is for composition, 9 is for normal levy. Then you can collect tax from your customers. Then you can claim your input tax credit, whatever tax you are paying on your inward supply, and you should issue tax invoice. Correct? Now, this is as per section 9. But if you are opting for section 10, then you should pay tax. You will pay tax at lower rate, but you should pay tax from your own pocket. You cannot collect it from your customers. Clear, guys? Now, so composition scheme also is not available for everyone. Again, whatever conditions, restrictions we saw, it is applicable. Plus, if you are a manufacturer of goods, then it is applicable. If you are a trader of goods, then it is applicable. Plus, if you are a service supplier, only one service supplier is covered. Please pay attention, guys. This is like a revision, because whatever I am explaining now is not an amendment. I am just explaining the concept of section 10. Okay. So, if you are a manufacturer of goods or trader of goods, for you, section 10 composition scheme is available. Okay. And then, if you are a service supplier, only one service supplier is covered. Who is that? Restaurant service suppliers. Restaurant service supplier is covered. Clear? So now these people can opt for composition scheme. Sir, is it mandatory? No. Even though your turnover, assume it is less than 1.5 crore, sir, should I mandatorily opt for composition scheme? No, it is not mandatory. It is your option given for you. If you want, go for option composition scheme. If not, you can go for a regular scheme as per section 9. Now, sir, if I am a manufacturer, what is the rate, tax rate? 0.5% CGST plus 0.5% SGST. Total comes to 1%. Agree? If I am a restaurant service supplier, then it is 2.5, 2.5. Total is 5%. Agree? Then, sir, what if I am a trader in goods? Then it is 0.5% of taxable supplies, guys. This is important. Whereas in first two cases, that is 0.5% and 2.5%, it is actually applied on your total turnover, aggregate turnover. If there is any exempt turnover, on that also we will apply. Whereas third case, that is trader. If you are a trader in goods, in that case 0.5% will be applied only on taxable supply. Sir, if I am supplying anything which is exempt, on that turnover don't apply 0.5%. Clear? All this we have discussed in our regular class, which is actually this all three are covered in section 10.1 and 10.2, which talks about composition scheme. Composition scheme. Please pay attention. And section 10.1 and 10.2, one provision is there which tells, if you are a service supplier, please pay attention. If you are a service supplier and you are covered in any of these 3 points, that means if you are a manufacturer or a restaurant service supplier, or if you are a trader, if you are doing any of these 3 and you are covered under composition scheme, other than this, one small service also you are giving. Assume consultancy service. Sir, can I opt for composition scheme even for consultancy services? Yes, provided that should be very small service. For example, they are telling whatever turnover you are getting from that service should not exceed 5 lakh or 10% of your turnover in the previous year, whichever is higher. I repeat. Now assume you are engaged in any of these 3 activities, whichever is given in section 10.1 or 10.2. Over and above this, you are also giving one more service, different consultancy or management services. So now, sir, can I even opt for consultancy services for composition scheme? The answer is yes, provided, condition is there, provided whatever turnover you are getting from that service, that small service, it should not be more than turnover 5 lakh or 10% of your aggregate turnover in the previous financial year, whichever is higher. If it is crossing that limit, assume my management consultancy services, what I am giving, the turnover of which is 15 lakh, which is crossing that limit. I am also a manufacturer. Sir, can I opt for composition scheme? No. For entire business, I should go for normal scheme. Agree? If a person is opting for composition scheme, for all the businesses, he should go for a composition scheme. Or else, if any one business is not eligible for composition scheme, then its entire business, all the businesses should go for normal scheme. That is the rule. Agree na? So if I am giving any service which is not falling under composition scheme, then I should go for normal scheme. Normal scheme means as per section 9, I have to pay tax at whatever rate is applicable. Clear? And whatever rates which we are seeing here are special rates like 0.5%, 2.5% and all. Clear? And please be careful, guys. Whatever rates I have given here is only CGST rate. This is not the final rate. It is only half of your normal rate. That is, assume for a manufacturer, what is the actual GST rate? 1%. See in your exams, please be very careful. Read the questions clearly. So assume in your question, a manufacturer, please pay attention, a manufacturer has opted for a composition scheme. What is the CGST rate applicable for him? Question, what is the CGST rate applicable for him? Options, 0.5%, 1%, 5%, 2.5%. What is the answer? Guys, tell me quickly. You can just type in the chat. I will repeat the question. A manufacturer has opted for a composition scheme. What is the CGST rate applicable for him under GST? 0.5%, 1%, 2.5%, 5%. What is the answer? It's 0.5%. Correct na? correct. Whoever is giving the answer, I want everyone to participate in the class. Whoever is attending the class, guys. Now, sir, why 0.5%? Because question was very clear with respect to CGST rate. In the same question, if the question was a manufacturer has opted for a composition scheme, what is the GST rate applicable for him? What is the GST rate applicable for him? Then the answer would have been 1%. The answer would have been 1%. Clear, guys? So please be very careful while answering any question, because most of the time you will get tempted when you see the options. But read question clearly, check all the options and then answer. Clear? Please be very careful, both for tax, income tax as well as GST, because sometimes they will try to confuse you. And when you answer the question, you will feel, okay, whatever I answered is correct only. But later you will realize only when you see the suggested answers are key answers. Clear? So please be careful. We will discuss with respect to the exams once I complete the questions. These portions. Yeah. Now, all this story done, sir. Now, sir, what if I am an exclusive service supplier? Sir, I am not providing any restaurant service. I am providing one service which is not covered in my composition scheme. In that case, new scheme was levied. New scheme was provided. That is as per notification in our study material. Agree? As per notification it was. That means if you are a service supplier and if you are not eligible for a composition scheme as per section 10, then you can opt for this scheme, which was called presumptive scheme. If you guys remember, presumptive schemes. As per this, they told if your aggregate turnover is not more than 50 lakhs, then you can opt to pay tax at the rate of 3% plus 3, that is 6%. Agree? But now they have removed that notification and they have told we have inserted a new section called 10(2)(a). Even this will come under composition only now. But this composition scheme is separate. First three was different. Agree? First three was covered was manufacturer, restaurant services and trader of goods. Agree? So this was there from first only under section 10. The last one, whichever I have marked it in yellow color, was actually as per notification. But now same provision, they have not changed the provision, they have just kept as it is. But instead of notification, they have made it a new section called 10(2)(a). Even this is actually called composition scheme only. All other things remain same, guys. Whatever I have put it in my study material, only small change which you have to make is, now this is not a notification, this is a section, that is 10(2)(a). Clear? So I will just read this part. Registered person not eligible under the composition levy under sections 1 and 2, that is subsection 1 and 2, but eligible to opt to pay tax under subsection 2A of section 10. In bracket I have told for exclusive service suppliers. That means I am providing one service for which my normal composition scheme is not applicable, so I can go under 10(2)(a). Okay, and you have to be very careful, guys. 10(2)(a) will come into picture only when 10(1) and 10(2) is not available for me. 10(1) and 10(2) is not available for me, then only I can go for 10(2)(a). Assume, sir, I am already covered in 10(1) and 10(2). Do you have an option to go for 10(2)(a)? No, you cannot go for 10(2)(a). Agree? I told you, if you are providing any additional service supply, small service, and if still you can go for 10(1), 10(2), you can go it, provided it is within the limit, 5%, sorry, 10% or 5 lakh, if it is within that limit. Clear? Hope you guys are clear with respect to this. Okay, there is no change in the provisions, only in place of notification, new section has come. That's all. Clear? Chalo, guys. Now, next amendment is with respect to, this is a new provision, input tax credit and computation of GST liability. Restriction on availment of input tax credit ITC in respect of invoices, debit notes not uploaded by the suppliers in their GSTR 1, new sub-rule 4 inserted in rule 36 of the GST rules, CGST rules. Okay, so what it is, I will explain here in simple terms. Listen carefully. Yeah. See, guys, so first we'll go to returns chapter. I will just recall some provisions. Return chapter. In return chapter, there is something called as GSTR 1. What is GSTR 1 means? Return, monthly return, which I have to file as a supplier. Who should file? Supplier. With respect to what? Outward supply. Outward supply, whatever I have made in a month. Within 11th of next month. Agree? I have to file GSTR 1. Who should file? Supplier. With respect to whatever outward supply he has made during the month within 11th of next month. Within 11th of next month. Okay, so now based on this, the recipient will take credit. Recipient will take credit. Again, sir, who is recipient? The buyer. Now assume I have supplied goods to you. Now I am the supplier. So assume I am charging 1 lakh rupees for you. On that GST rate is 10%. Just for example I am taking. So whenever I am just quoting the example, don't worry, because 10% GST rate might not be there, but still I am just giving an example. 1 lakh I am supplying my goods to you, on which GST rate is 10%. So totally invoice price will be how much, guys? 1 lakh for the goods plus 10,000 GST. So I would have charged for you 1 lakh 10,000. I have collected 1 lakh 10,000 from you, and 10,000 I have to remit it to the government. What is my revenue? Only 1 lakh. Agree? Even though I have collected 1 lakh 10,000, 1 lakh is only my revenue. 10,000 I have remitted to the government. Now, as you have paid 10,000 for me on inward supply, for you it is an inward supply, for me it is an outward supply. You can claim a credit of that provided other conditions are satisfied in ITC chapter. ITC chapter is given in section 16 to 21. Agree na? Certain conditions are given there, especially in section 16 and 17. You have to satisfy all that conditions and take a credit. Now assume you have satisfied all the conditions. Sir, can I take a credit of 10,000? Yes, you can take a credit. Whenever you are paying tax for your outward supply, you can adjust this 10,000. Agree? So this is what the normal rule was. Now what they are told is, so assume in the month of September 20, you have purchased goods. I have purchased goods from 100 suppliers, 100 different suppliers. Okay. Now please pay attention, guys. I am explaining this provision with the example. I have purchased the goods from 100 different suppliers in the month of September, on which I have paid a tax of 1 lakh rupees. Input tax. I have paid a tax of 1 lakh rupees. This is my inward supply. Now, sir, can I take a credit of this 1 lakh? Yes, obviously, provided you are satisfied the conditions of ITC section 16 and 17. That, sir, what are those conditions? Simple, guys. Section 16 will tell you should have received the goods, then you should be in the possession of tax invoice. All those things. If you are receiving goods in installment, you can take a credit only when you receive the last installment. All those conditions are given in section 16. Agree? If you satisfy all those conditions, you can take a credit. But now they are telling, whoever these 100 suppliers are there, na, they should have filed GSTR 1. Okay, they should have filed GSTR 1. Okay, and when they are filing GSTR 1, they should have given the information with respect to this 100 supplies. Then only the recipient can take a credit of this. I repeat, from whomever I have purchased the goods, they should file GSTR 1 with respect to their outward supply, because for them it is an outward supply. So when they are filing their GSTR 1, they should have told, I have supplied so and so goods for so and so person on this day, on which I have collected a tax of this much and I have remitted to the government. He has to give the information in GSTR 1. Okay, and this GSTR 1 has to be filed within 11th of October. Agree na? For September, 11th of October it has to be filed. Okay, now recipient can take a credit in GSTR 3B. GSTR 3B. Sir, GSTR 3B is also monthly return. It is a monthly return which has to be filed within 20th of next month. Hope you guys remember all this. I am not teaching anything new with respect to this returns, due date and all, because all these are normal. What is new, I will come to that later with this example. Agree, guys? I repeat. Now GSTR 1 has to be filed by the supplier monthly. Supplier should also file GSTR 3, no doubt. So now GSTR 3 actually is replaced with 3B, guys. So in your material, wherever 3 is there, 3B 3B has to be replaced because it is a monthly return. I have given that in your study material also, later part. After the table I have given at the end. So now recipient has to file his GSTR 3B within 20th of next month, that is 20th of October. Agree, for September month. While filing his GSTR 3B, whatever credit he has with respect to his purchases or inward supply, he has to take it. Now, sir, can I take a credit of? So GSTR 3B has to be filed for September within 20th of October 2020. Agree, guys? Now, sir, can I take a credit of 1 lakh is the question. Previously 1 lakh you can take it provided you are satisfied the condition of you have received the invoice, you have received the goods, everything. But now what they are told is, okay, you can take a credit of 1 lakh provided supplier has given full information in GSTR 1 from whomever you have purchased the goods. All the suppliers have given that information that okay, you have purchased these goods from this person in GSTR 1, which they will file within 11th of next month. Then you can take a credit. Now assume in my example, sir, 80 suppliers have given the information in their GSTR 1, whereas balance 20 suppliers, they have given the information. Balance 20 suppliers have not given they have not filed GSTR 1. Assume in that case, you see what is the credit which is available with respect to 80 suppliers. Assume it is 75,000. Okay. And balance 25,000 will be with respect to non-filed GSTRs. Agree? So what they are trying to tell is 80 suppliers, whoever has filed their GSTR 1 and who has uploaded their invoices in their GSTR 1 and given information in GSTR 1, you can take full credit. You can take full credit. Okay, sir, full 75,000 I can take. No doubt. Okay. Then with respect to this 20 suppliers, whoever has not uploaded their invoice in their GSTR 1 while they are filing their monthly return, you cannot take full credit. They are telling you cannot take 25,000 full. They are trying to put a limit for this. They are telling you can take actual 25,000 or 20% of this 75,000. 20% of 75,000. So 75,000 into 20%, it comes to 15,000. Whichever is lower. Whichever is lower. That means it is like this. Actual eligible credit for your unuploaded invoices or unuploaded debit notes, we will tell. So how much it is? 25,000 or 20% of your uploaded invoices. That is 20% of 75,000. How much it is? 15,000. Whichever is lower, 15,000. So how much you can claim with respect to this? Only 15,000. So totally for September, how much credit you can claim, guys? 90,000. So and what about the balance 10,000? You can claim it provided these 20 suppliers file their GSTR 1 and upload the invoices whichever they have issued for you. In GSTR 1, every supplier should give the full information with respect to whatever supplies they have made to other people and what tax they have collected from the recipients. If they are not given the information, then the recipient cannot claim full credit. Clear? Assume 20 suppliers, they have filed GSTR 1, but they have failed to give the details. Even in that case, you cannot claim full credit. This limit is applicable. Hope you guys are understanding. Clear, guys? I have also given the illustration later after this provision. Hope you have understood. We'll go through what is the amendment. Check. Yeah. Restrictions of, yeah, this heading we have gone through. Provisions we will see. Section 16.2. Section 16 talks about input tax credit eligibility. There are certain restrictions, conditions and all. So guys, input tax credit is given in section 16 to 21. Section 16 to 21, where 16 will tell conditions, 17 talks about some block credit and all, 17.5. Clear? Yeah. Section 16.2 of CGST Act provides certain conditions for availing ITC, wherein one of the condition is that the taxpayer must be in the possession of tax invoice or other tax paying document in respect to which he is claiming the ITC. This is what condition is given in section 16. Rule 36 of CGST rules lays down the documents and other conditions basis which the registered person can claim ITC. Means recipient can claim ITC only when he has tax invoice with him, which is issued by the supplier. That was the condition given in 16. That is what we have learned in regular class also. But now, with effect from 9th October 2019, a new sub-rule 4 has been introduced in Rule 36 to specify the quantum of ITC that can be claimed against the service invoices or debit notes uploaded, invoices and debit notes not uploaded. By whom? By the supplier, not by the recipient. Sir, who is taking the credit? Recipient. Who should upload the invoices? The supplier in GSTR 1. As per sub-rule 4 of Rule 36, ITC to be availed by the registered person in respect of invoices or debit notes is as under. So what it is, please pay attention. Where invoice or debit note has been uploaded by the supplier. Okay. So I have purchased the goods, I have paid a tax, the supplier has issued invoice for me, plus he has uploaded that invoice in his GSTR 1, which he will file with GST department. Okay. In that case, full ITC if all other conditions of availing ITC are fulfilled. Other conditions is you have to have a tax invoice, you would have received the goods, all those conditions you would have satisfied, and you would have used that goods for the purpose of business or profession, or intended to be used in the business or profession. All those conditions has to be satisfied. Okay. Next, where invoice or debit note has not been, okay, this is important, okay, it has not been uploaded by the supplier in his GSTR 1. This is the case. I have purchased the goods from the supplier, I have paid GST on that, I have received tax invoice, I am using that goods for my business, but the supplier has not uploaded whatever invoice he has issued to me in his GSTR 1. In that case, even though I am satisfying other conditions, I cannot claim full ITC. So what is that? We will see. 20% of eligible ITC. Okay, I can claim only 20% of eligible ITC available in respect of uploaded invoice. That means 20% of whatever is here, I can take it. Okay. However, the ITC so claimed should not exceed the actual eligible ITC available in respect of the invoice not uploaded. They are trying to tell you can take 20% of 75,000 for whatever invoices has been uploaded. But whatever 20% will come, which comes to 15,000, that should not exceed the ITC which is available for this 20 suppliers. That is 25,000. That means the input tax credit for the not uploaded invoices or 20% of ITC for uploaded invoices, whichever is lower. I repeat, for not uploaded invoices or for invoices which are not uploaded by the supplier in his GSTR 1, how much ITC I can claim is two things we have to take. That is, whatever input tax credit is available for that invoices which is not uploaded, take that figure, or 20% of the input tax credit of the invoices which is uploaded, whichever is lower, only that much you can claim. Clear? Anaksha? Yeah. Chalo guys. Notes. I have some notes. With effect from 1st January 2020, notification number 75-219 CT has amended the said rule. See, notification number, date and all you need not remember, but your date is important, guys. Amended the said sub-rule to reduce this percentage of ITC that can be availed on invoices not uploaded by the supplier in their GSTR 1 from 20 to 10%. That means, normally this is 20. From when? From 9th October. Agree? But from 1st January, that is from 1st January 2020, instead of 20%, they have made it as 10%. Instead of 20%, they have made it as 10%. Sir, in our exam, what should we do? If they are not given the date of invoice and all, you always go with 20%, guys. If they have mentioned the date, and if the date is on or after 1st January 2020, then apply 10%. Okay, instead of 20%, apply 10%. That's all. Don't apply both. It's not 20 plus 10. Please be careful. Instead of 20, it is 10. Clear? Hope you guys are clear with this. Next, second point. Taxpayer may avail full ITC in respect of IGST paid on import documents issued under RCM, credit received from ISD, etc., which are outside the ambit of section 37(1), as it is not an outward supply, provided that eligibility conditions for availment of ITC are met in respect of the same. That means if you are covered in this second point, guys, for you these things are not applicable. Whatever we studied till now, if you are covered in this second point, for you that restrictions are not applicable. Sir, what is this? Simple. See guys, GSTR 1 has to be filed with respect to outward supply, which is given in section 37. GSTR 1 is given in section 37, which tells supplier has to file the GSTR 1. Now, assume, so I am paying tax on RCM, reverse charge mechanism. So, who will pay tax under reverse charge mechanism? Recipient. So, for recipient, assume I am purchasing some goods on which I have to pay tax on RCM basis. So, is it an outward supply for me? No. Should I file GSTR 1? No. So, in that case, I am not covered in this situation. Agree? Even though the invoices are not uploaded, still I can claim, because I am not at all required to file GSTR 1 because it is not an outward supply for me. Agree? One thing. Next, whenever you import any goods outside India, you are supposed to pay IGST. IGST. When you import something, who is the recipient? You. You are the recipient and you have to file your return. And GSTR 1 is only for the supplier for outward supply. When you purchase the goods, it is an inward supply for you. When you import the goods, it is an inward supply for you. But still you will be paying IGST. Agree? So, is these conditions or restrictions applicable for me? No. For the importer who is paying IGST on its import, this restrictions or condition is not applicable, because in that case GSTR 1 is not applicable only because GSTR 1 has to be filed for outward supply. Here no doubt I am a recipient who is paying tax on my inward supply. Agree? But I am not the service supplier, or I am not a supplier, I am a recipient. So in case of RCM and import of any goods for which I am paying IGST, these restrictions or conditions are not applicable. That 10%, 20% thing is not applicable. Plus, distribution of credit by input service distributor. Input service distribution means, assume I have purchased some goods which I am sending for all the branches in India, for all my branches. Now I will obviously distribute the credit for all the branches. In that case, when I am distributing the credit to all the branches, in that case also you need not follow this restriction. This restrictions is not applicable for you because you already purchased the goods and you are distributing the credit for your own branch. There is no supply there. Agree? So in these three cases, these restrictions or conditions are not applicable. Clear, guys? Yeah. The restriction imposed is not supplier wise. It is not supplier wise. It is in total. The credit available under rule 36 subrule 4 is linked to total eligible credit from all suppliers against all suppliers whose details have been uploaded by the suppliers. Further, the calculation would be based on only those invoices which are otherwise eligible for ITC. Accordingly, those invoices on which ITC is not available under any of the provisions, say under section 17.5. 17.5 talks about block credit, guys, would not be considered for calculating 20% of the eligible credit available. For example, this table, whatever we have learned, we should apply these conditions or restrictions only if the credit is available for me. Assume I am purchased some goods for which I don't have any invoice. Sir, should I apply these restrictions, conditions and all? No, because we know that for that I am not eligible to take credit. Or else assume I have purchased something which I am not using for my business. I am using it for my personal purpose. Am I eligible for credit? No. Can I apply all these restrictions? No, because you are not at all eligible for credit. This 10% or 20% restriction is applicable only you have purchased something, you are eligible to take credit, but invoice is not uploaded by the supplier. Only in that case you apply this restriction. If not, don't apply it at all. Clear, guys? Hope you guys are clear. I have given two illustrations here. We'll just quickly go through this because this illustration I have given only for your understanding. This type of problem may come or may not come in your exam, but still it's easy for you to understand. I will just quickly go through it once. Yeah, pay attention so that you will get clarity. I have added two illustrations on this. Mr. Vijay, a registered supplier, receives 100 invoices for inward supply of goods or services involving GST of 10 lakh. Okay. I am the recipient. Totally I have received 100 invoices. On that 10 lakh is the GST I have paid from various suppliers during the month of October. October. Just remember the month. We are not bothered about the year. Now, so I am the recipient, guys. I am the recipient. I have received total 100 invoices from different suppliers, because here I need to aggregate all the suppliers. Don't do it supplier wise. You have to do it in total. Okay. Out of 100 invoices, 80 invoices involving GST of 60 lakh have been uploaded. 6 lakh have been uploaded. Okay. 6 lakh full credit I can take in their respective GSTR ones filed on the prescribed due date. Therefore, compute the ITC that can be claimed by Mr. Vijay in GSTR 3B, that is monthly return. See, GSTR 3B, guys, instead of 3, actually now 3B has been replaced. Agree? Which has to be filed. This is also monthly return within 20th of next month. In GSTR 3B, I have to give details with respect to my both inward supply and outward supply. Both. Clear? For the month of October to be filed by 20th November. Assuming that GST of 10 lakh is otherwise eligible. That means all other condition is satisfied. Now thing is like this. Sir, 10 lakh is my total credit. Okay. Out of that, two bifurcations I have to do. 6 lakh invoice is uploaded. Okay. I can take full credit. 4 lakh invoice is not uploaded. Invoice is not uploaded. In that case, what will be the amount of credit I can take? 4 lakh or 20% of 6 lakh. 20% of 6 lakh, whichever is lower, that is 1.2 lakhs. Whichever is lower, 1.2. So I can take a credit of 1.2 here, 1.2. So totally I can claim a credit of 6 lakh plus 1.2, which comes to 7.2. Hope you guys are clear for the month of October. For the month of October. So that is what is given here. You can observe. You can observe this table. 80 invoices uploaded in GSTR 1. How much is the ITC available for you? 6 lakh. Can I take full 6 lakh? Yes. Last column will tell full 6 lakh you can take. Okay. Note 1. What is note 1 will tell? 100% ITC can be availed on the invoices uploaded by the suppliers in their GSTR 1. And they have also given in the question in the last line that all other conditions is satisfied. All other conditions are satisfied. Okay. That means 6 lakh full you can take. Fine. Next. 20 invoices not uploaded in GSTR. How much is the GST ITC available on that? 4 lakh. But can I take full 4 lakh? No. What you have to do? 4 lakh or 20% of 6 lakh, whichever is lower, which comes to 1.2 lakh. You can refer note 2 here. As per rule 36.4, the ITC in respect of invoices not uploaded. So please be careful. Here also not uploaded, not uploaded. By the suppliers in GSTR 1 is restricted to 20% of eligible ITC in respect of invoices uploaded. So 20% of not 4 lakh, you have to take 20% of 6 lakh. Okay. Thus, in respect of 20 invoices not uploaded in GSTR 1, the ITC has been restricted to, even though your credit is 4 lakh, but you can take only 1.2 lakh. 20% of 6 lakh, which comes to 1.2 lakh. Sir, what about the balance? When can I do it? That you can still claim when the supplier give the information in his GSTR 1. Assume in the month of November or December, when he is filing his GSTR 1, is giving the information with respect to this 20 invoices. Then you can claim the remaining. How much will be remaining? 2.8. 2.8 lakhs you can claim a credit. Not for, again full 4 lakh, because already you have claimed 1.2 lakh. So only the remaining amount you can claim when the supplier upload the invoices in his GSTR 1. Clear? Next, illustration 2. This is similar thing but different calculation. We will see. Mr. Ajay, a registered supplier, receives 100 invoices for inward supply of goods or services, that is purchases, involving GST of 10 lakh from various suppliers during the month of October. Out of 100 invoices, 85 invoices involving GST of 9.5 lakh have been uploaded. So that means full 9.5 lakh I can take in their respective GSTR 1s filed on the prescribed due date. Therefore, Compute the ITC. So that means 15 invoices have not been uploaded. It is understood. When 85, they are telling that out of 100, 85 is uploaded. That it is understood that balance 15 is not uploaded. What is the GST with respect to that? 0.5 lakhs, 50,000. Compute the ITC that can be claimed by Mr. Vijay in his GSTR 3B for the month of October to be filed by 20th November, assuming that GSTR of 10 lakh is otherwise eligible. That is section 16 and 17 conditions are satisfied. Okay. So in this table, 85 invoices uploaded in GSTR 1. The GST available on that or ITC available on that is 9.5 lakh. Can I claim full? Yes. Refer note 1, same note I have given here. Next, 15 invoices not uploaded. Okay. So 15 invoices not uploaded. What is the credit available for that? 0.5 lakhs. 0.5 lakhs or 20% of this. How much it comes to? 1.9 lakhs. So whichever is lower is only 0.5 lakhs. Agree? So totally I can take a credit of how much? 10 lakhs. In the previous example, I can take total credit of 6.6 lakhs out of 10 lakh. Here I can take a credit of full 10 lakh. You can see note 2 here. Please observe. As per rule 36.4, that ITC in respect of invoices not uploaded by the supplier in their GSTR 1 is restricted to 20% of eligible ITC in respect of invoices uploaded in GSTR 1. However, since in this case 20% of eligible ITC in respect of invoices uploaded is 1.9 lakhs, exceeds the actual ITC of 0.5 lakh in respect of 15 invoices not uploaded, ITC availed should be limited to actual amount of ITC for not uploaded invoices. Clear? Which comes to 0.5 lakhs. Clear, guys? So please be careful. I have given two illustrations. Both are different calculations. Okay. So please be careful with respect to this. I am expecting question on this. So they may directly ask theory question. What is the amount of what is the percentage of GST that can be claimed, like 20% or 10%? Answer accordingly. If they are not given the date, just answer 20%, guys. If they have given the date and if the date is on or after 1st January, then put it 10%. Total is incorrect in question 1. Illustration 1. Yeah, 6.6. It should be 7.2. Yeah. It should be 7.2. Correct. You guys also, when you are studying, please do make this correction. It should be 7.2. Yeah. Chalo, guys. We'll continue. Any doubt? Everyone understood? Chalo, guys. Yeah. Chalo, guys. We'll continue. Chapter 5, next amendment, procedural compliance under GST. All taxpayer filing returns GSTR 1 and GSTR 3. GSTR 3, I told you, it has to be replaced now with GSTR 3B. Instead of 3, it is 3B, that's all. Are required to file an annual return in GSTR 9. So annual return, you guys know, it has to be filed within 31st December of next financial year. Agree? See, whenever you are doing GSTR, you have to file monthly return, 2 monthly return, that is 1 and 3B plus 1 annual return in the GSTR 9 if you are a normal taxable person. However, the following persons are not required to do so. Who are those? Means the following person is not required to file GSTR 9. Who are those? Casual taxable person, NRTP, that is non-resident taxable person, input service distributor, person affecting TDS, TCS. All these things are given in your material, guys. What is addition is point E. Wherever I have marked it in yellow, see other things, whatever from year to year, it is given in your already in your study material. E is extra now. E is extra. Person supplying online information and database access or retrieval services from a place outside India to a person in India other than registered person. So even this person is not required to file GSTR 9. What they are trying to tell you here is, this point E I am telling, some person is giving some online information on database access retrieval services from outside India, okay, for a person in India who is unregistered, who is not registered, that is unregistered person in India. In that case, that person is not that person who is providing services from outside India is not required to file annual return in India. Clear? This point E is additional point. Clear? From point A to D is already there in your study material. You can add one more there, that is E. The said provisions shall not be required to furnish reconciliation statement in form GSTR 9C under section 44(2) of the said act read with rule 80. See, GSTR 9C is with respect to reconciliation statement. Whoever is subject to audit, GST audit I am telling, they have to file their annual return. Along with that, they have to file something called as reconciliation statement in GSTR 9C. So whoever is required to file their annual return and who is subject to audit, they have to also file their reconciliation statement. But these people, whoever is covered from point A to E, they are not required to file GSTR 9. That means they are also not required to file their reconciliation statement in GSTR 9C. Clear? So whoever is covered in point A to E, they are not required to file annual return in GSTR 9, plus they are also not required to file their reconciliation statement which is given in GSTR 9C. Clear? Whatever I have marked it in yellow is only the additional thing. Yeah, whatever we see from now is completely additional, new thing. Yeah, we have some more things left. We will just finish. Next, we will see some new additions or amendment or new sections or new provisions, guys, from now. So what are those? We will see quickly. In the Central Goods and Service Tax Rules 2017 herein referred to as the said rules, after Rule 10, the following rule shall be inserted, namely Rule 10A. Rule 10A is the new rule which they have inserted. What is that? We will see. Furnishing of bank account details. So we have to furnish bank account details. Who? The person who is taking GST registration. So what is given in this Rule 10A? We will see. After a certificate of registration in form GST REG 6, see, whenever I want to get my registration under GST, I should make an application in REG 1. REG stands for registration. GST REG 1. Once the GST officials are satisfied with that, they will issue a registration certificate in GST REG 6. Agree? Okay. Has been made available on the common portal, and goods and service tax identification number has been assigned. So once my registration has been granted, I will be given one unique number called GSTIN, that is GST identification number. Okay. The registered person shall as soon as may be, but not later than 45 days. Okay, this is important. Might be your MCQ question. But not later than 45 days from the date of grant of registration or the date on which the return required under section 39 is due to be furnished, whichever is earlier. Furnished information with respect to the details of bank account or any other information as may be required on the common portal in order to comply with any other provision. See, normally when you are getting your registration, you have to give your bank account details. But assume when you are taking your registration, you are not given your bank account details. You have to give it within the prescribed time. What is that time? We will see later. But sir, before going to Rule 10A, we will see what is Rule 10. Rule 10 will tell effective date of registration. Effective date of registration means, so once I am liable for registration, please pay attention, guys. Once I am liable, I am just trying to connect with other provisions. This is not an amendment, whatever I am telling now. If I am liable for a registration, as per GST, within 30 days, I have to make an application for GST. Now assume, I am just taking one random date. On 1st January 2019, I was liable for registration. Okay. And in that case, I have to make an application with the 31st January 2019. Agree? I have to make the application within 30 days from the date on which I was liable. Okay. Now, if I make an application within 31st January 2019, then what will be my effective date of registration, guys? If I make an application within 31st January, then effective date of registration is 1st January 2019. That is the date on which I was liable for registration. Clear? Next, assume I have not made an application within 31st January. I have made an application on 15th February 2019. Okay. And registration is granted on 25th February 2019. Okay. Now what is the effective date of registration in this case? Application is not made within 30 days on which I was liable to make application. Agree? Now in that case, what will be your effective date of registration is the date of grant of registration. Grant of registration. This will be your effective date of registration. Agree? This is your rule 10, which is not an amendment. I am just explaining the provision. Now what they are trying to tell in rule 10A, that is new rule, is this is the new rule. You have taken your registration, you have been granted a registration, but while getting registration you are not given your bank account details. Okay, they are trying to tell, okay, the date on which you have been granted registration, the date on which you have been granted registration, assume in this case you are granted registration on 1st February. First case, whatever I explained. Second case, they have granted registration on 25th February. First case. So you have to see 45 days from this. Okay. Within 45 days from the date of grant of registration. They are not using the word from the date of effective registration. They are using the word 45 days from the date of grant of registration. So irrespective of when you have made an application within 30 days or after 30 days, we are not bothered about that. As per rule 10A, in rule 10A they are telling you have to give your bank account details within 45 days from the date of grant of registration. Grant of registration means irrespective of whether you have made an application within 30 days or after 30 days, we are not bothered about. That is taken care by rule 10. But what we are bothered about is when you are getting the registration done, 45 days, or the due date to file your monthly return under section 39, that is GSTR 3B. 39 is for GSTR 3B, 37 is for GSTR 1. Okay, or what is the due date to file your GSTR 3B? 20th February year in my example, because 20th of next month is the due date to file. 39 means, guys, I will just mention your section 39 means it is GSTR 3B, not 1. GSTR 1 is given in section 37. Okay, so 45 days from the date of grant of registration or 20th February, whichever is earlier, you can see here. I will read that point. But not later than 45 days from the date of grant of registration or the date on which the return is required, See, due date is 20th February. You may file it before that, but still you have to take 20th February only. Because see, whenever due dates are given, that is the deadline for you to comply with the provisions. But if you are doing something before that, then that will be the actual date. But here we are not supposed to take actual date. We are supposed to take due date. Okay. Required under section 39 is due to be furnished. So that is due date, whichever is earlier. So okay. So I will take any one of this case because both I cannot take. Assume, okay, this case I will take, that is 1st February. I have made an application within 30 days and I have been granted registration. Date of grant of registration is 1st February 2019. 45 days from that date. So February you need to take, whether it is a leap year, everything you need to consider. So it will be 28 days in 19. So 28 plus 15. 28 plus it will be 17. So 17th March. So it will be your 17th March 19. So 17th March or 20th February, whichever is earlier is 20th February. Agree? Within this date, you have to give your bank account details. Clear, guys? This is only when, if you are not given your bank account details when you are making an application for GST registration. If you are given the bank account details when you are making the application only, then no need to bother about all this. Clear? Yeah. Next, notification number 47/2019, central tax dated 9th October 2019. All this you don't worry. This notification number and this date, on which date this notification was dated and all, don't worry. Okay. Filing of annual return GSTR 9 under section 44(1). Annual return GSTR 9 is given in 44. Read with rule 81 of CGST rules in respect of financial year 17-18 and 18-19 has been made voluntary, okay, for the registered person whose turnover is less than 2 crore, okay, and who have not furnished the said annual return before the due date. The annual return shall be deemed to be furnished on the due date if it has not been furnished before the due date. So what they are trying to tell you here, they have just given some exemptions for some small people. See, normally annual return has to be filed for a financial year within 31st December of next financial year, giving all the details of whatever supply they have made throughout the year. Agree? But here they are trying to tell for the financial year 17-18 and 18-19, the suppliers whose aggregate turnover is less than 2 crore, if they are failed to file their GST returns within the due date, and if they are filing late, still we will assume that they are filing within the due date, because 17-18 and 18-19 was the first 2 years for the GST. So obviously many people faced many problems with respect to filing GSTR. Monthly return itself, they were facing many problems. So annual return couldn't be filed within the due date. So they told, okay, if you are filing it after the due date also, we will still assume that, okay, you are filed within the due date. No interest penalty will be levied for you. That is what the exemption they gave for the small people, that is whose turnover is less than 2 crore. Clear, guys? This actually is not given in the act. They are given by way of notification, because this is applicable only for 2 financial year, not for all the financial year. After 18-19, that is for financial year 19-20, 20-21 and all, normal provision is applicable. If you have not filed your annual return within 31st December, then you have to pay interest, penalty, all those things will be there. Only for this 2 year, the benefit has been given. Clear? Next, Aadhaar authentication mandatory for new registrants for grant of registrations. So even in income tax, we saw something like this. If you don't have PAN, but you are supposed to give PAN, if you give your Aadhaar also, it's fine. But once you give your Aadhaar, that will be assumed to be an application for PAN, and PAN will be allotted for you. This is what the amendment was there for income tax. What in GST they are trying to tell is Aadhaar authentication. That means you have to link your Aadhaar to your GST IN, that is GST identification number. See, Aadhaar they are trying to link it for everything now. For bank account they linked it, mobile number they linked it, then for income tax, for PAN also they linked it. They gave some deadline and we were supposed to link it. Then even for GST they are trying to link it, because now they are trying to make Aadhaar as a unique number for both GST as well as your income tax. Clear? Because previously PAN was a unique number for income tax, even for GST. But what they're trying to, many people used to have 2-3 PANs. Okay, they used to take some fake PANs and all. They will try to deviate their income or business. So just to avoid that, they're trying to connect your Aadhaar, PAN, bank account, everything, so that you will not misuse any law. Clear? Chalo guys. Yeah. Aadhaar authentication mandatory for new registration. That means what they are trying to tell is, whoever is making a new registration under GST, they should mandatorily give their Aadhaar number along with their PAN. PAN is mandatory for GST registration also. Along with the PAN, they should also give their Aadhaar number. Clear? Sir, what if I am already registered under GST? Before introduction of this provision, if I have already registered under GST, what is the provision? Everything is covered here. We will see one by one. Clear, guys? So this is just a theoretical provisions. So we'll just go through it. There is a simplified registration process under GST because everything is online. You can just get registered under GST portal. However, in an endeavor to curb or check fly-by-night operators and to increase compliance, Aadhaar eKYC, KYC means Know Your Client based registration, has been introduced under the GST law with effect from 1st April 2020. Aadhaar authentication, so for us financial year 1920 is applicable now. See, for GST there is no financial year, nothing, only for income tax. Clear? Because GST everywhere we will be studying monthly only, because GST payment, collection, everything is month wise. Clear? With effect from 1st April 2020, Aadhaar authentication has been made mandatory for the new applicants. Okay. Everyone who is taking a new registration under GST, for them, they have to give their Aadhaar in their REG1. REG1 is the application which I make for registration now. So in that form, I have to give my Aadhaar. Okay. Whether an individual applicant or an applicant other than individual. Anyone who is taking registration under GST, they have to code their Aadhaar. Aadhaar means Aadhaar number. In order to be eligible for grant of registration. If not, they will not be given the registration only. Subsequently, existing registrants, that means before 1st April, whoever is already registered, okay, will also be required to undergo Aadhaar authentication, otherwise their registration shall be deemed to be invalid. Agree? They are keep on giving some deadlines. Within this date, you have to link your Aadhaar to this. You have to link your Aadhaar. Correct now? So even the person whoever has been registered under GST before 1st April 2020, even they have to authenticate their Aadhaar. But they will be giving some deadlines. Within that, you have to get your authentication. Clear? Next, subsection 6A, 6B, 6C, 6D were inserted in section 25. Sir, first of all, what is section 25? See, registration chapter is dealt in section 22 to 30, guys. Agree? So 25 is the procedure for registration. How do I get my registration? Agree? So this will come in registration chapter. Section 25 is procedure for registration. Like I should make an application within 30 days in REG1. All those things are given in section 25. Okay. Why the Finance Act number 2, 2019? Again, this is as per number 2 Finance Act 2019. To make Aadhaar authentication mandatory for specified class of new taxpayers and to prescribe the manner in which certain class of registered taxpayer is required to undergo Aadhaar authentication. So these 4 sections were newly added for section 25. 25 is already there. For that 4 subsections were added to tell whoever is making, to make it mandatory, whoever is making new application, they should always give their Aadhaar number, plus whoever is already registered, even they have to authenticate their Aadhaar. Clear? Section 25(6)(a) requires every registered person to undergo authentication, furnish proof of possession of Aadhaar number in prescribed form and manner within prescribed time. So every registered person means who was registered prior to, see, every registered person means who was registered before 1st April 2020. That is before who was already registered. They have to get their Aadhaar authenticated. Okay, within prescribed time, that will be given, deadlines will be given by CBDT. Okay, section 25(6)(b) and 6C require every individual and Karta, managing director, old-time director, partners of the firm, etc., respectively to undergo authentication, furnish proof of possession of Aadhaar number in a prescribed manner. Such authentication is mandatory to be eligible for grant of registration. It shall be from a date to be notified. See, what they are trying to tell in 6B and 6C is, first they told whoever is taking new registration, they should mandatorily give their Aadhaar. Okay. Now, assume a partnership firm is getting registered under GST. In that case, the partners of the firm also should give their Aadhaar number. That is, partners of the firm is the face of partnership firm. Now, they should give their Aadhaar. In case of company, assume company is getting registered under GST. In that case, managing director or old-time director should give their Aadhaar. Clear, guys? So they should get their Aadhaar authenticated. Okay. Next, section 6D, 25(6)(d) provides that the provision of section 25(6)(a)(b)(c) shall not apply to a notified person or class of person, any notified state or union territory or part thereof. That means these provisions, whatever we studied till now, that is 25(6)(a)(b)(c), it is not applicable for certain people, certain special persons. Who are those? It will be notified by CBDT. Okay. So what is that also we will see at the end. Chalo. So now what this actual provisions will tell, we will see. Please pay attention. All these are theory. In pursuance to subsection 6B, 6C, 6D of section 25, following amendments have been made. So these are the amendments which have been made. Rule 8 of CGST Rules 2017 provides the procedure for application of registration. A new sub-rule 4A has been inserted after Rule 4 to Rule 8. It provides that with effect from 1st April 2020, the applicant shall, while submitting an application, undergo authentication of Aadhaar number for grant of registration. In simple, what is this authentication means? Simple, you have to quote your Aadhaar, that's all, when you are getting your registration under GST. Okay. In exercise of powers conferred by section 25(6)(b) and 6(c), an individual authorized signatory of all types, managing and authorized person of partnership firm, Karta of Hindu undivided family shall undergo authentication of Aadhaar number as specified in this rule in order to be eligible for registration with effect from 1st April 2020. That is what I told you. In case of partnership firm, partner should get authenticated. In case of company, managing director or whole-time director should get. In case of sole proprietor, individual. And in case of HUF, Karta. Whoever is the face of that business, they should get their Aadhaar authenticated. Clear? Next. However, if Aadhaar number is not assigned to a said person, they shall be offered an alternate and viable means of identification in the manner specified in Rule 9 of the said rules. This case is, sir, I am getting GST registration, but I don't have Aadhaar. If I don't have Aadhaar, how will I quote it? How will I authenticate it? In that case, you will be given an alternative way of getting registration. Agree? So you need not worry about that. But if you don't have Aadhaar, but still you want to get GST registration, alternative means will be there. Okay. Proviso inserted to Rule 9(1). What is that alternative? Provides that where a person other than those notified under section 25(60), they are not required to get their Aadhaar authenticated. Agree? They are exempted people. Okay. Fails to undergo authentication of Aadhaar number as specified in Rule 8(4)(a) above, then the registration shall be granted only after physical verification of the principal place of business in the presence of such person not later than 60 days from the date of application. So what is this? Please pay attention. Now I am getting my GST registration. I have made an application, but I don't have my Aadhaar. In that case, I will be granted registration only after physical verification of my business place in my presence. They have to physically come and verify whether I am doing my business in this so and so places, principal place of business, and that verification, that is physical verification, should be made within 60 days from the date I have made application for registration. So I will assume I have made an application on 1st November for GST registration in REG 1. I don't have Aadhaar. In that case, within 60 days from 1st November, the GST officials should come and physically verify my place of business, principal place of business in my presence. Agree? Okay. Then only they can grant a registration. A site survey, that is physical verification, will be done and identification documents will be verified. Identification documents means all the proof, PAN, whatever documents I have. In such cases, deemed approval of registration application as provided in Rule 5 will not be applicable. There is some deemed approval provisions. For example, if I have taken registration in one state, then it is assumed that it is registered, I have registered under CGST also, all those things are there. So those provisions is not applicable in this case if I don't have Aadhaar. Next, Rule 25 providing for physical verification of business premises has also been suitably amended to provide that where the proper officer is satisfied that a physical verification of place of business of a person is required due to failure of Aadhaar authentication before the grant of registration or due to any other reason. Even for any other reason also physical verification can be conducted after the grant of registration. Okay. So assume registration has been granted, but the GST official has a doubt that okay, whether I am doing the business in that place, principal place of business or not. They can come and physically verify it. Okay. He may get such verification of place of business in the presence of the said person. That means the person who is getting registration. Done. The verification report along with the other documents including photographs shall be uploaded in form GST REG 30 on the common portal within a period of 15 15 working days following the date of such verification. Now what is the gist of all this? I will tell you guys, please pay attention. New 4 subsections has been added. They tell whoever is taking a new registration under GST, they have to mandatorily give their Aadhaar number. Okay, sir, what if I don't have Aadhaar number? In that case, still I can take GST registration. They cannot deny the registration. They tell, okay, you can take a registration, but I will come and physically verify your principal place of business. Whichever place you are declaring it as a principal place of business, I will come and check that place in your presence within 60 days from the date on which you have made an application for registration. Okay, once I come and check everything, I am satisfied. Okay, fine. Within 15 days from the date of I am physically verified your place, I have to give the details in form REG 30 in the GST portal within 15 days of the verification. Clear? Any confusion? Sir, what if I am already registered under GST before 1st April? Then still you have to authenticate your Aadhaar within some deadlines which is given by CBDT. Clear? Next. In exercise of the power conferred by section 25(6)(d) with effect from 1st April 2020, the provisions of section 6b and 6z shall not apply to a person who is not a citizen of India. Okay. 6d is telling that all this provision is not applicable for few people. Who are those? First of all, it is not applicable for a person who is not a citizen of India or to a class of person other than the following class of person, namely. So any other class of person, they are not specified still, but this provision whatever we have discussed is not applicable for a person who is not a citizen of India, because the person who is not a citizen of India cannot have an Aadhaar number. Common. Agree? So, and for other persons, whoever will be notified later, but other than for these 4 people it is mandatorily applicable anta they are telling. So these 4 people cannot be covered under 25(6)(d). Who are those? Individual, authorized signatory of all types, means who have the signature authority, managing and authorized partners, and Karta of HUF, because they have to mandatorily get Aadhaar authenticated. Clear? Other than these people, you can specify any other person under section 25(6)(d). One of the person who is specified there, the person who is not a citizen of India. Clear guys? Because you cannot have Aadhaar. If you are not a citizen of India, you cannot have Aadhaar. Chalo guys. Clear? Yeah. We have some more left. Okay. We have some more things left. We will just close it. See, now whatever we saw, we will see is with respect to some amendments with respect to states and union territory. Agree? As you people know, removal of Article 370, all these things happened last 6-7 months before. So due to that, there was a state called Jammu and Kashmir before. Now they have broken down that into 2 union territories. Please pay attention. There was a state called Jammu and Kashmir. You guys, everyone will be obviously knowing. After removal of Article 370, now the state of Jammu Kashmir will be called Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and one more, Union Territory of Ladakh. Union Territory of Ladakh. Please pay attention. Now, sir, Jammu and Kashmir is a union territory with state legislation. That means it will have a CM, all that elections will happen. Whereas Ladakh is a union territory without state legislation. That is, it will be ruled by central government only. It will be controlled by and managed by central government. So now, totally in India, how many states are there? How many union territories are there? What is the tax effect? Everything we have to consider. And one more thing, there was 2 union territory called Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli. I will repeat. There were 2 different union territory, Daman and Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli. But now they have merged both of this and they have made one union territory. That is Daman, Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli. All this put together one union territory now. Agree? This is what amendment which we will be seeing now. Clear? So what is that? We will quickly go through. Notification so and so seeks to amend notification number 2/27 central tax in order to notify jurisdiction of Jammu commensurate over Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Union Territory of Ladakh. So I will not read first paragraph because this is not important, that this date, section, power, where is power given, all those things are given. But what is important for us is second paragraph. In the said notification, for the word state of Jammu and Kashmir, the word Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Union Territory of Ladakh shall be substituted. So Jammu and Kashmir was a state, now it is a union territory, but two different union territories. Clear guys? Chalo. At the end, I will just summarize how many states are there, how many union territories are there, what is the effect in GST, everything we will see. Yeah. Now, notification number so and so, central tax dated 26th November 2019, seeks to notify the transition plan with respect to Jammu and Kashmir reorganization with effect from 31st October 2019. So Jammu Kashmir was a state before 31st October. From 31st October it became a union territory. From that date, what is the effect? Guys, as you know, in GST there are two different types of supply. Which are those two different supplies? Intra-state, that means within the state, and interstate. Sir, what is intra-state? When it is within the state, when the location of supplier and place of supply is within the same state or same union territory. Okay, sir. Sir, what is interstate? When the location of supplier and place of supply is in two different states or two different union territory. In that case, it is called interstate supply. Agree? So now, sir, what if it is intra-state supply? What will be levied? If it is within the state, if it is within the state, it will be CGST plus SGST. Agree? Equally it will be levied. Okay, sir. What if it is within the union territory? Assume there is a supply within Andaman and Nicobar. Agree? In that case, what will be levied? It will be CGST plus UTGST. Agree? This is what if it is an intrastate supply. Sir, if it is an interstate supply, we will leave only one thing, that is IGST. That is in total. Half of thing will be central government revenue, the other half will be the destination states or union territory revenue. Clear guys? This is what the provision is. Now, see, till 31st October, that is till 30th, on or before 30th October, in Jammu and Kashmir, they used to levy what? CGST plus SGST. If there is any intrastate supply. Interstate means IGST. Okay, fine. But from 31st October, it will be different. So from 31st October, so what will be the effect? In case of Jammu and Kashmir, if it is an intrastate supply, still CGST plus SGST only will be levied. Why so? Because it is a union territory with state legislation. State government is there, so revenue should go to the state only. Agree? But if it is a intrastate supply between in Ladakh, in that case CGST plus UTGST will be levied, guys. UTGST will be levied because Ladakh is not a union territory with state legislation. It doesn't have a state legislation. It will be managed and controlled by the central government. Clear? So, if there is any intrastate supply, in that case, from 31st October I am telling, from 31st October in Jammu and Kashmir, before 31st October also, after 31st October also, in both cases it will be CGST plus SGST. Agree? Whereas in Ladakh, previously it was combined with Jammu and Kashmir. So in that case, they used to levy CGST plus SGST. Now it is a separate territory where from 31st October, in case of intrastate supply, CGST plus UTGST will be levied. Clear? That is if there is any supply within that union territory. Agree? Hope you guys understood the concept. That is what is given here. So there is some transition provision. Okay, sir, what if I have CGST credit? What if I have UTGST credit? What should I do it? Can I carry forward it? What is that things and all? They are given some transition period. Transition period means, okay, from 31st October, Jammu Kashmir will be called Union Territory. Ladakh will be called Union Territory. But we will give some extra time for you to adopt for the change. So what is that is given here? Yeah. Government on the recommendation of GST Council hereby notifies those persons whose principal place of business or place of business lies in erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir till 30th day of October 2019 and lies in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir or in the Union Territory of Ladakh from 31st day. Previously it was in Jammu and Kashmir. Now it is in either in Jammu and Kashmir or Ladakh, because they two are two different category or territory now. Okay, onwards, as the class of person who shall follow the following special procedure till 31st day of December. So from 31st October 19 till 31st December 2019, they are telling that this is a transition period, guys. It is a transition period. Okay, the said class of persons shall, okay, ascertain the tax period as per 2 clause 106 of the said act for the purpose of any of the provisions of the said act for the month of October and November as below. So the tax period will be like this. For the month of October, it will be from 1st October to 31st October only. Sir, October 31 days now, but still from 31st October we will treat it as a new tax period. Okay, fine. So this is 1 month tax period. For November, we should not take from 1st November. We have to take from 31st October. That is one small thing. Agree? So the tax period for the month of November will be from 31st October to 30th November. 1 day, extra day. Because from that day it was a new territory now. So we are trying to pull it for the new period. Clear? Okay. Irrespective of the particulars of tax charged in the invoices or in the other like documents raised from 31st October till the transition date, pay the appropriate applicable tax in the return under section 39 of the said act. See, previously assume you were paying CGST or SGST, now you are paying UTGST. You cannot tell, sir, previously I was paying that, this and all. Whatever you are paying, you pay the tax at the appropriate rate. Assume the GST rate is 10%. So if it is an intrastate supply, it will be CGST plus SGST 5. Agree? You cannot tell, sir, I should pay UTGST now, so I will pay only 2%. Nothing like that. There is no change in the rate. The name might have changed. From SGST, the name would have become UTGST, but still whatever tax you will pay is 10% only. Okay, because you would have used to charge GST at, assume CGST, SGST you are charging. Now you are charging UTGST. So that doesn't mean that just because name change, rate also will change. Clear? So rate will remain same. Next, third, I have an option to transfer the input tax credit from the registered goods and service tax identification number, that is GSTN registration number, till the 30th day of October in the state of Jammu and Kashmir to the new GSTN in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir or the Union Territory of Ladakh from 31st day of October by the following procedure as follows. Now, till 30th October, you will be having some credit now. Till 30th October, you will be having some credit on what tax, whatever you have paid on your inward supply. Sir, is it lapse? Will it become lapse? No. You can carry forward it to your new tax regime, that is new tax period provided. So assume you have CGST credit, okay, or you have, SGST credit or CGST credit. Now how can I carry forward this? Sir, how much to Jammu Kashmir I can take, how much for Ladakh I can take? So it depends on what was your turnover in Jammu Kashmir or what was your turnover in Ladakh. Sir, if I have business in both the places, assume in Jammu Kashmir also I have business, in Ladakh also I have business. So see what was your turnover in both the places. Assume here it was 10 lakhs, here it was 5 lakh. And your credit, assume CGST credit was, please pay attention guys, whatever I am telling here is 10 lakh and 5 lakh is turnover. Okay, you have a SGST credit of 1 lakh, assume. Okay, sir, how will I apportion it? Simple. So you take SGST credit 1 lakh into 10 by 15. So total turnover. 10 is your turnover in Jammu Kashmir divided by total turnover. Okay, so you will get something that you can take it as SGST credit. Okay, so then 1 lakh into total 5 lakh in Ladakh, total turnover is 15 lakh. So how much ever you get, you take it as your UTGST credit, because Ladakh will be UTGST. You totally had 1 lakh SGST credit. Out of that, how much for Jammu Kashmir, how much for Ladakh? You will apportion it on the basis of turnover. For Jammu Kashmir, take it as an SGST credit only. Whereas for Ladakh, you take it as UTGST credit, because for Ladakh from 31st October there won't be SGST, there only be UTGST. Clear? Hope you guys are clear. So here 67,000 some change will come. Here 33,000 change will come. Both 67,000 you will take it as for Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir as SGST credit, whereas 33,000 change you will take it for Ladakh as UTGST credit. Yeah, as below. So first point A. The said class of persons shall intimate the jurisdictional tax officer of the transferor and transferee regarding the transfer of ITC within 1 month of obtaining new registration. So once my jurisdiction changes from state of Jammu and Kashmir to Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Union Territory of Ladakh, I should obtain new registration. Within 1 month from the obtaining new registration, I have to intimate to the officers. Okay. Next, the ITC shall be transferred on the basis of ratio of turnover of the place of business in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Union Territory of Ladakh. That is what I did in my example. Okay. The transfer of ITC shall be carried out through the return under section 39, that is GSTR 3B of the said act for any tax period before the transition date, and transferor GSTN, transferor, whoever is giving the credit, okay, would be debited the said ITC from its electronic credit ledger in form GSTR 3B, and transferee GSTIN would be crediting the equal amount of ITC in its electronic credit ledger in form GSTR 3B. Now, see, for this 1 lakh has been getting transferred to other people. So here in this registration GSTIN 3B, I have to debit this 1 lakh because whatever credit I am getting, I am giving it to others. That is my new registration. Agree? So they have to debit their 1 lakh there, and here they will credit this respective amounts. That is 67,000 change and 33,000 change. Clear? 67,677 or 667 and 33,333. I will take a credit of this. Okay. Yeah. Next, the balance of state taxes in electronic credit ledger of the said class of person whose principal place of business lies in Union Territory of Ladakh from 31st day of October shall be transferred as balance of Union Territory in electronic credit ledger. That is what I told you. Even though I had a credit of SGST 1 lakh, whatever amount is going to Union Territory of Ladakh, it will not go it as SGST, it will go it as UTGST. That is 33,333 in my example. Agree? Because from 31st October, Ladakh, they will not be paying any SGST, they will be paying UTGST. So whatever credit is available for them, they will take it as UTGST. Clear? The provisions of section 24, that is mandatory registration of the said act, shall not apply on the said class of persons making interstate supplies between the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh from 31st day of October till the transition date. See, section 24 will tell the following people should mandatorily get registered. Who are those? One of that is interstate supply. Whoever is making interstate supply. Sir, from 31st day of October till 31st December, Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, Union Territory of Ladakh are two different people, two different union territories. So in that case, whoever is supplying goods between or supplying services between Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, should they mandatorily get registration? No. Up to 31st December, it is not applicable for them. Till transition date means till 31st December, section 24 provision is not applicable for them. From 1st January, it will be applicable. 1st January 2020. Clear? Yeah. We are last point. We are in the last point, guys. Come on, pay attention. Notification to provide special procedure for taxpayers in Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu consequent to merger of two union territories. I told you previously Dadra and Nagar Haveli was separate union territory and Daman and Diu was separate union territory. Now they have merged all this. That is, all this put together is one union territory. Clear? The government notified those persons whose principal place of business or a place of business was in erstwhile Union Territory of Daman and Diu or in erstwhile Union Territory of Dadra and Nagar Haveli till 26th day of January. So this change has happened on which day, guys? 26th January 2020, Republic Day. And is in merged Union Territory of Daman and Diu and Dadra Nagar Haveli. from 27th day of January onwards. As the class of person who shall accept as respect things done or omitted to be done before the notification, follow the following special procedure till 31st day of May 2020 as mentioned below. That is from 27th January 2020, actually 26th also will be counted, till 31st May 2020, it will be transition period for them. Similar to that union territory, whatever they give, it will be a transition period for them. So what they have told, we will see. The said registered person shall ascertain the tax period as per subclauses 106 of section 2 of the said act for the purposes of any of the provisions of the said act for the month of January 2020 and February 2020 as below. For January, what will be the month tax period is from 1st January to 25th January. Okay. For February, it will be not from 1st February, from 26th January to 29th February. And 2020 is a leap year, please be careful. And I have told you in income tax, whether to know a year is a leap year or not is very important, especially to calculate residential status. So if you have any confusion, divide any year by 4. If you are getting exact answer, that will be a leap year. If not, if you are getting decimal answer, then it will not be a leap year. So 2020, your financial year for income tax purpose, I am telling it is 1920. So in 20, it is a leap year. Please be careful while calculating the number of days. Even a single day sometimes will make a difference. Okay, tax period we have seen. Irrespective of the particulars of tax charged in the invoices or in other like documents, raised from 26th January 2020 till the transition date, pay the appropriate applicable tax in return under section 39 of the said act. Same way. So irrespective of what you are paying, UTGST only you will be paying. Don't tell, sir, just because the things are changed, I will pay lower tax, that this, don't give reason. Whatever rate applicable, the rate will not be changed. It will remain same. Clear? Chalo. At the end, I have given note with respect to all these amendments for union territory and states. Finally, what are the summary of this? In India, there are 28 states and 8 union territory as on today. Okay, that is how many union territory? 8. Which are those? Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Chandigarh, Daman and Diu, Dadar and Nagar Haveli. See, please be careful. All this put together, one it is now. Okay. Okay. Next, Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Lakshadweep and Puducherry. But out of this 8 union territory, 3 union territory have their own state legislation. Which are those? Delhi, Puducherry and now Jammu Kashmir. Agree? These 3 union territory have their own state legislation. So for GST purpose, we will consider these 3 union territory as state only. As state only, and we will charge SGST in case of intra-state supply there. Where in case of Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu Kashmir, we will not charge UTGST, we will charge SGST because they will have their own state government, guys. Please be careful. Now, for the purpose of GST, Jammu and Kashmir, Delhi and Puducherry are considered as states. Therefore, there are total 31 states now. That is 28 plus 3 union territories. Okay. So 31 states means, sir, how come you told just now 28 states? Now, actually 28 states only. But for GST purpose, we consider 3 union territories as states only. Na? That is 28 plus 3. Okay. Where SGST plus CGST is levied and 5 union territories where UTGST plus SGST, CGST is levied on intra-state supplies. Please be careful with this. This is one important change, guys. Because sometimes they may ask that question also. There is a supply within so and so place. What will be charged? SGST, CGST, UTGST or IGST, something they may ask like that. So please be careful with respect to this. Clear? Guys, clear? We are done with amendment class. So please, if you are clear, please do type clear. If not, if you have any doubts, please do ask. Yeah. Chalo, guys. So whatever is required for your December exams, we have done everything. As I have already told you, I will just repeat once again. Guys, whatever study material has been done, given for you, and whatever we have covered in regular classes, do study that only. Everything remains same except whatever we have done today. Okay. I will be sharing this material in the group, WhatsApp group, whatever groups are there, you are there as a member. So I will be sharing there. So please do study this today itself, and when you are revising, please do keep your study material as well as this both put together and study. Clear? Chalo. Hope everything is clear for you guys. So guys, do study well. Don't take any things for granted. Don't take COVID or anything as an opportunity to miss your exams. Nothing can change. Okay, next another some days it might be there, but ultimately if you want to get qualified, don't postpone the attempts just because of COVID and all. You can definitely do it. So already one attempt we have lost due to COVID. So please make sure that in December you will write, and you make sure that you prepare well and give it. Agree? Don't take anything for granted, and for sure, as per my opinion, this time exams will happen. Okay, so don't think that again exams will be postponed or something like that. Yesterday there has been a notification issued by institute telling you can opt out of the exam. That means if you are willing not to write the exam, then if you already registered, you can opt out not to write. Okay, so that means this December exams will happen, guys. So please do prepare well. Take your time. Still almost 1.5 months is left. Please do prepare. Don't take anything for granted and give your exams. Okay, so do your best, prepare well, and do well. All the best. Once again, sir, please take one test for tax. See, actually I had a plan to take, but due to some problem or errors, so we couldn't take, especially GST test. Income tax, I guess we had 1 or 2 tests, but I don't think we will be having any test because now everything is online. I don't know whether they will be able to upload the question paper and all. If possible, I will try. If not, guys, please try to do it from your end sincerely. And at the end of my study material, I have added questions, chapter wise questions, MCQ questions. Please do practice it. If I am not able to conduct the test, at least you try to solve some questions independently. Take some previous exam question papers or something like that. Especially tax, what is the problem is, the assessment and financial year will be different for previous year question papers. That will be a problem. So if you are having any question bank or anything, you can solve from that, or else I told you at the end of my study material, I have also added chapter wise questions for income tax, and even for GST I have added questions. Please do practice it. I will try. I will just talk to the management. If possible, we will have a test. Okay, but I think from Monday you have some other classes also. We will see. I will try my best. If not, please do study well. If you have any doubts, confusion or anything, you can get back to me on my number. Chalo, fine. Shall we close the class, guys? Shall we close? Chalo. Okay, guys. Do study well, please, and give your exams. All the best for your exams as well as your future. Bye. See you. Take care.